got the signals for the Baltimore Colts. Unitas gives to Amici. The Colts are the world champions. Amici scores.
It's amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football. California won the big game.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
This is Phil Steele.
This is Mike Burnham.
This is Wes Durham.
This is Mike Ashley.
Hi, this is Chuck Foreman, number 44 of the Minnesota Vikings.
Woo, mercy, this is handsome Jimmy Vane, the Boogie Woogie Man.
This is Coach Fry with Virginia Tech Football, and you are listening to Big Dog Sports Talk.
Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to roll? Okay, let's do it.
You're in the doghouse with Rick Watson on Big Dog Sports Talk, presented by Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment. Join us in the Family Fencing Studios and chime in on the McClellan Chiropractic chat line. He's keeping cool with help from Little River Heating and Air, but this show is straight fire. And now, the big dog, Rick Watson.
Rick Watson's got the mic, he's the big dog king. Cover sports so sharp, it's a New River thing. Virginia Tech fire, rapid pride too. Every stat, every play, he's bringing it to you. He's got that voice, deep as a valley, breaking it down, no dilly, no dally. Big dog sports talk, feel the bark. He's got the scoop, faster than a sprint. Calling plays like a coach, every word's a hint. From the courts to the fields, the stories unfold. Rick's play-by-play, worth its weight in gold. With a laugh and a growl, he'll pull you in. Big Dog's podcast, let the games begin. Big Dog Sports Talk, feel the bark, feel the bite.
Hey, good morning. It's Monday. See, it says, okay, Monday, let's do this, which indicates it's Monday. How's everybody doing? Excuse me. There we go. That's right. I had to break out the hoodie again. It's a reaction Monday here on the program. Obviously, we're going to react to the Tech spring game. Coach Elmo's going to join us. He was following along. We'll get his thoughts. Todd Grantham. Find out how things went for UAB now as we get into the quiet period, if you will, of college football. Hope you had a good weekend, wherever you might be. Good morning, Stephen. Hey, what's up, Swish? Been a while. Good morning. T-Bird. How's everybody doing? Good to see you. Please subscribe, like, and share our channel and our content. Been a while since we heard from Swish. How was everybody's weekend? I It worked all weekend. But that's okay. That's okay. Lots of stick and ball sports to call. We had the 3 games in softball, then baseball yesterday. Radford swept Gardner-Webb in softball, so they're a game out of first. They're going to be okay for the postseason. And baseball got a terrific game yesterday pitched from Daniel Quintana, a no-hitter with 2 outs in the 7th, and the Highlanders won that series. So good show by the Highs on the diamond this weekend. Good morning, Prometheus. What's up, Robert? How are you, man? Good morning. How's everybody doing? Yeah, we missed you, Swish. I hadn't been the same without you. Glad you're back. And by the way, I'm going to take full responsibility for this weather. I'm sorry. I once again declared it spring for good, and I don't know what yesterday was. I tell you, it's strange, isn't it? You're sitting over there, whether you're at the spring game on Saturday. We were at Radford, a softball doubleheader. We had a baseball game, and it's 85, and it's just perfect. It's not humid. The sun's out. And then I think yesterday the high got to 50 down at the baseball stadium. And you looked at the feels like 43. Cold today, right? It's just, yeah. The high today is barely going to be in the 50s. There's a freeze warning for people who have planted things tonight. So I'm sorry. I will not make any more comments about the weather. Maybe let's do the opposite and see if that works. Hey, I think we're going to have cold weather for a long time. Maybe now the counter effect. Remember when Superman spun the world back on its axis to save Lois Lane's life, which was kind of lame. It's what I'm trying to do now with my comments about warm weather. I thought I was done with the hoodie. Nope. Hit us up on our professional door text line, 391-0788, or the McClellan chat room, which many of you are already there. It always makes the weekend great. As we get started for another week here on the program. Coming out of the spring game, your thoughts if you went. I have a couple thoughts. We'll get Coach Elmo's thoughts about it. First of all, I've never been one to, even when I used to cover the spring game in person, I got to stand on the sideline for a few of the spring games in the past when Coach Beamer was there. And you don't ever make too big of a deal out of it. You want to see some things, but Tech was more established then, and you kind of knew what you had. But if you went, what were your thoughts? What was the crowd? I've heard so many varying things of how big the crowd was. People were saying that it was pretty close to 40,000. That's been the most consistent response that I've gotten. So let me know. Let me know what you think about the attendance. Of course, everything was kind of overshadowed by the bizarre scene with the parachuter who crashed into the scoreboard. I mean, I'm sitting there and I was having this sent to me from many of you showing many people hit me up on the text line, and I got all these pictures. I'm like, is that real? And, looking at it, and Andy Bitter did a great job of kind of showing in the aftermath of if a few more feet and he had not hooked onto the scoreboard, he may have lost his life, man. He's very fortunate, and I was just so glad to hear that they were able to get him down. It was terrible. Just a terrible way to start the Franklin era, right? You don't need that. Everybody's so excited. But the main thing was the dude is okay. It was awful. Almost surreal that happened. Tech said 27,000. Really? Prometheus saying about 3/4 full, looked to be around 40. And that's kind of what we thought. 27, really? That would feel low. Of course, again, this is what happens when you don't have tickets. You just kind of, everybody can throw out a number. But regardless, it was well attended. We'll say that. It was well attended. Weather was nice, and that was the main thing. Ethan Grunkenmeyer, I think, looked strong. Of course, we knew that he and Reynolds were going to be two guys that were going to hook right up immediately, and they did. That's going to be an ongoing thing for opponents to deal with Tech's offense. I think they're going to run the two tight end set. In other words, you're going to have a pro-style offense, which I say yes. I'm digging that aspect of it. I think that's a great thing. Everybody falls in love with the spread. And how about we go back and play some old-fashioned type football? Right? And that looked good. Looking at the numbers. Now, I was working. I didn't get to see any of it. But that apparently was really, really good. What did you like about the game? Like, what did you see that was encouraging? The one discouraging thing that I had was reading Andy Bitter's report, and he talked about, now it's good. It goes back to the old, what Coach Beamer used to always tell me. If one thing shines, then the other thing that it's shining against could be a problem we have to address, right? He used to say that every spring game, and I know it sounds like common sense, but it's a good reminder. Andy indicated, and if you were there, let me know, constant pass rush seemed like Tech was getting pressure on the edges the entire scrimmage. But that has me concerned about the offensive line a little bit in their pass protect. From this 420 weed day, Prometheus has to be a happy camper. So was the skydiver looking over 90,000 Tech fans in Lane Stadium until he got there and found that 60,000 was just a scoreboard. What's up, Morris? Good morning. The one thing that you have to have, well, the two things, obviously, you need your quarterback to be really solid. And I think we're not going to have to worry about that at all in 2026. But the O-line is a concern for me. If that was constant throughout, that bothered me. Because that's the one area, if it's not right, it doesn't matter what the kind of plays Ethan Grunkenmeyer can make, because then he's not going to have any time to do the things he needs to do. What's up, TP? Man, we're thinking about you. Prayers up for you. Saw your post. I know you got my message, but hope everything's going well after your surgery. And I'm very sorry to hear that, brother. But hang in there. You're tough as nails. You know, you're a real tough guy. You know, for a kicker, too. That's really surprising. We're thinking about you, man. A kicker? Tough? Really? You got this. You do. You got this. We'll hear you all excited for that Pulaski County home opener coming up in just a few months. You'll be fine. But so Grunkenmeyer to Reynolds looks like a good thing. Mixed results running the football, which, you know, you're going to have. They were depleted in the running back room. So, but the bottom line is, at the end of the day, when the coaches meet on Sunday after the spring game, how much did they have on a checklist and how much did they accomplish, right? That's the main thing. What did you like? Did some guys show up? And this is the thing that was always something that was consistent for Coach Beamer's teams. There would always be guys who maybe overshowed, if you will. Maybe guys they didn't expect, and they're like, wow, we may have something here, right? And you hope that is something that was consistent throughout the evaluations post spring game after they watch the film and do all that. But I never try to blow it too much out of proportion. I know a lot of fans do. And we know, I think Luke Reynolds is going to be a good player. I saw some guys saying Luke Reynolds is the best tight end at Tech in the last 50 years. Based on a spring game. I think he's going to be good. But let's calm down. But I'm glad to hear the crowd was good. And the main news was I'm glad to hear Parachute Guy was okay. I think he's got a little injured arm, but that could have been. If he would have fallen, I don't think he survives. That angle of the person took from under, that's a long fall, man. Unreal. Yeah, exactly, TP. Yeah, it's just I don't think you can base what did yeah, I think it was Bud. I was trying to think it was Bud or Ricky Bustle. One of the two. He used to say you can exaggerate things that happen good in a spring game, but damn it, when something would go bad, you can realize you still got work to do, and there's a problem. I think it was Bustle. I think it was Ricky. He used to tell me that. Yeah, exactly, Prometheus. And they did have an injury. What's up, Zorro? They did have an injury. The cornerback that's going to be a starter, he posted that he's okay, but we'll see. I hope he's okay. That was the one injury that kind of stood out. I haven't heard about any others. I have not heard about any others. But that's the one, obviously, that's concerning. But apparently he said he'll be good to go, so hopefully that's the case. At the time, I know when Andy was tweeting, and all I'm doing is getting Andy's tweets, it sounded bad, but I think the kid himself said, I'm okay, just needs a little bit of time, and now he's got time. Practice is over after the spring game. But don't make too big a deal out of it. Enjoy yourself. Get to see the guys, but I've heard from several people already acting as if this is going to be a 10-win team based on just the spring game. And I'm like, you realize every fan base that watches their team in a spring game feels that way. Everyone. Everyone. Do you know I saw that Kirby Smart in Georgia, they go live every spring game? What I mean is the quarterbacks are live. They play a game. I thought that was cool. He's saying to hell with injuries. They play an actual game. There's no, hands-off rules. And I guess it's worked for him. I don't know how many other schools do that. But apparently at Georgia, it's a real game. A real game. Tech fan making a lot of fun of UVA's attendance at their spring game. And that really surprised me to see that there was a middle section that had some folks. But man, oh man. For a team that, played in the ACC title game, that's not a lot of fan favor there. That just blows my mind in a way. Your coach had a great year. You get an extension. You win the regular season of your conference. And I don't know what numbers they released, but I mean, that place was, whereas Tech was, well over half full, Virginia was about 3/4 empty, it looked like. That kind of surprised me. I thought maybe there'd be more of a vibe there. But no. The answer is a resounding no, apparently. Must have coincided with the polo match or something. Yeah, we can't make it in the spring game. Oh, by the way, y'all have to help me make fun of Jen. Look, I have nothing against equestrian. She spent all weekend posting about how South Carolina won the National Equestrian Championship. First of all, I didn't even know they awarded an NCAA trophy for equestrian. And my second question is, how much NIL did they have to pay the horses? I mean, who bargains for the horses? You know it's bad at your school when you're sitting there like, yeah, you see this? We got the equestrian title. Do you honor the equestrian team like one of the football games and have the horses just come out there? That'd be great. Equestrian? Is that a club thing? That can't be an NCAA, but she put national champions. Is your spring game must have had a bad vibe. Well, they didn't have a spring game because their stadium's being rejuvenated. When everybody down there is talking about their equestrian team. Schools going out trying to raise money for their athletes, football and basketball, and out South Carolina's going out there. What's the NIL deal look like for the horses? Lots of oats. They have gold-plated bridles. I mean, I'm just saying. Equestrian? I'm going to show you. People don't want to believe me. There it is. South Carolina is your equestrian championship. I really like the fact that they don't show any of the horses. That's an NCAA trophy, though. No, wait a minute. It's an hang on. It's an NCEA. Oh, okay. It's an NCEA trophy. Anyway, you've got to help me join and make fun of Jen on Friday. Right? Right. Yeah, I did. I put that up, Steve, but I don't think that's accurate, as you can see by my heading. So when I got home Saturday night, I didn't know much about nobody had posted anything about the attendance, which I thought was weird. So I typed in what was the attendance at the spring game. And on the Google AI, it said a little over 27,000. So I sent that to a couple people at Tech, and they said they probably would have gotten that from Virginia Tech people, like you said, Steve. But like I said, I don't think it's accurate. Most peeps are saying around 40K were at the game. So I don't know. So I didn't know. I had no idea because nobody was posting it. So I did post that on the Facebook page. And even though I put that header up there, people were coming after me. Like what? I'm not saying that's the number. This is the number that they said on the response to the question. Just like I posted the parachute, some of the pictures when it first happened, and didn't make any derogatory comments, just not a great start to the James Franklin era, which it wasn't. You got the spring game, and then boom, that happens, and everything's got to be put on hold. The important thing was the gentleman's okay. Great job by the Blacksburg Fire and Rescue Squad, by the way, the responders. And then people are like, well, this wasn't James Franklin's fault. Tech fans are just, you're a little sensitive. I never said it was. There was nothing indicated in my post it was anybody's fault. But apparently what happened, I looked into it, apparently Penn State fans were taking a lot of shots at the the parachute incident. So I think that's what it stems from. It wasn't directed at me, but at the post itself. Someone was like, you shouldn't be posting this because it's bringing a negative light to James Franklin. I'm like, this is big news. By the way, it was on national news. Gentleman almost lost his life. Who gives a damn about James Franklin or football? A gentleman almost lost his life, and someone's sitting there trying to say, you shouldn't be posting this to try to protect James Franklin. What? It has nothing to do with James Franklin. But thank goodness he's okay is the main thing. Reading, it's fundamental. Remember when you used to watch PBS and they had the rainbow thing with a star? Reading is fundamental. He did. Franklin said he would feel it, and he did not. Well, that was hyperbole. That was hyperbole. Lots of hyperbole. And I know people were coming at him on Friday. Records released that he had misinformed about the budget at Penn State in his last year. And that was making some news around X. He had released a statement that was untrue. But I think if Penn State fans are lingering on this thing, you've got a new coach. Okay? You should be happy with your new coach. You guys kind of fell into Matt Campbell. You should enjoy that. It shouldn't matter what James Franklin's doing at Virginia Tech. Just like Tech fans shouldn't worry about Penn State. Now they know him a lot better. He was there for over a decade. So they're in a better spot to maybe have an indication of who he is than Tech fan who's just getting to know him. But the back and forth is who cares? Tech's got their new coach. Penn State's got their new coach. Right? Everybody seems or should be happy. It's just crazy. But I did thought it was interesting. People were like coming at me over posting a thing that happened that was terrible. It was terrible. Hey. One guy said, you must not like Virginia Tech. Why? What does that have to do with anything? This is national news. This was showing up this was like one of the lead stories on the dreaded 4-letter network. It's news when something like that happens because it could have cost him his life. Nobody was making fun of it. Well, I guess unless Penn State fan may have been. Hey. So I responded, and he goes, well, people are taking shots at him all the time. Okay. He can get the hell over. You can get the hell over. He's a very rich man. He's done some things in the past that make you kind of turn your head a little bit. So far, he's off to a good start in Blacksburg. Hopefully, he's gotten through all those things. It's not my job to worry about people and how their response is to somebody. It's not my job. Why should I go out of my way to worry about that when this is something that happened? That's the main thing. And the post, by the way, got over 225,000 interactions. So, it was news because we were one of the first ones that put it up. If you go back to Saturday and look at X, every college football account was showing the incident. And the video really showed how hard he hit. And I'm so thankful that he caught on top of the scoreboard. Imagine if that's how it would have started. If he had fallen, what would we be talking about today? So if anything, thank goodness he's fine is my whole thing. I'm just glad he's okay. But in any event. Yeah, and Tebow, if they were, those people are just morons, you know? Just morons. What's up, Big Al? Tailgated beside Brian Siegel. Yeah, he's a great dude. Great dude. One of the many reasons we have him on every Tuesday. Taller on both sides of scrimmage. Quarterback get rid of the ball faster and more accurately. Quarterbacks get rid of the ball faster and more accurately. Good. What's up, Chris Lester? Good morning, brother. Yeah, me too. Me too. I'm just glad he was okay. I didn't sit there and go, how does this affect James Franklin? So why? Or how does this make Tech football look? It doesn't make them look like anything. It's just an accident that happened for a celebration Saturday of your new coach that's been promoted so much in his first spring game. It's a day of excitement. You're trying to make it more exciting. And then that horrible thing happened, and fortunately it turned out as well as it could have. But for people to get all, that's just, it's insane. People are so sensitive, man. Just chill. Or am I not going to post it? Because a couple of people are worried about James Franklin's feelings? What? Yeah, it would be great. Have him on the program. Yeah. That won't happen. That won't happen. Tight ends use much more. Yep, which was what we had speculated, and that's been part of his offense. Yeah, the MO. And obviously the two guys from Penn State are probably going to have the best connection because they kind of know each other a little bit. Drunkenmeyer and Reynolds. The O-line's a concern to me, reading Andy Bitter's piece about the constant pressure. Pass pro may not have been as strong as we wanted it to be, at least where we hope. But they had some injuries, but that's something they're going to have to fix. Yeah, there were a couple of injuries. Looks like the cornerback's going to be fine, though. Chris, you got any insight? He posted he was going to be good. He says there hasn't been excitement like this for spring ever. Well, no, he's wrong about that. And the biggest spring crowd ever, and he was wrong about that. Yeah, he said he posted he was going to be good. That's good. That's good news. That's good news. But if y'all were there, what'd you think? What were your takes? I didn't get to watch it. I can't really comment on it other than reading about it because I was working. And then obviously it's not televised. One of the young defensive linemen was injured. Okay. There you go. We got Chris who can give us injury updates. That's cool. Thanks, Chris. And thanks to Sundown Electric. Our excellent reputation, long list of satisfied clients is endless. Superior craftsmanship, attention to detail, clear communication, honest and integrity. Reach out to Sundown Electric. They are terrific. Bob Christ and the Ready Set Fund, CRST11@gmail. If your organization, school event, school team wants to raise money, check out the Ready Set Fund. NRV Super Bowl, where we're going to have our bash. He's been part of the community for over 25 years. Give Terry Stike a call, 382-5525, to reserve your lanes today. Lawson's Mobile Home Supplies, located at 300 North Franklin Street in Christiansburg. 540-381-8011. Home parts for your windows, your doors, plumbing services, you name it, they have it. Speaking of doors, nobody does garage doors any better than Professional Door Incorporated, residential commercial garage doors. Family owned and operated for 38 years. You've got Professional Door, family owned and operated. You've got Sundown Electric, family owned and operated. National Bank, member FDIC's exclusive banking partner, BDST on YouTube, my exclusive banking partner. Ryan Pry and the BDST fan question of the week. Let's have a fan question that deals with the something coming out of the spring game. 701 West Main Street in Radford, Trust and Estate Planning. What do you think? You want to do that? You want to have a post-spring game fan question of the week? Little River Heating and Air, 295 Radford Street in Christiansburg, 540-553-2971. The best at what they do, whether it's heating or air. And apparently now, the good Lord's saying we're not done with heating. Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment, the presenting sponsor of this program. Another great weekend of racing for them on Saturday. I heard there was a very large crowd. Great news. Congratulations again to Jonathan and Tim. That's awesome. Family Fencing, the sponsor of our studios, 540-200-8294, familyfencingnrb.com, and Mark Hunley, Dr. Mark Hunley, 155 Walters Drive. Go see him. Get your body feeling much better. Oh, Steven Seeger, Georgia Tech guy, giving us the update on Georgia Tech football here. Was that scrimmage, was it live, or was the quarterback, like Tech, hands off? It's a lot easier to be a good quarterback when you know no one can touch you. That's why it's interesting at Georgia that it's live, and it's always been live under Kirby Smart. I thought that was interesting. Was that the parachuter, Tebow? The guy who hit the scoreboard? Is that who you're talking about? Oh, okay, so Georgia Tech's not live. Well, I don't really care about quarterback stats unless they're bad, when you can't really pressure him or really make him feel like he has to do something. Well, even more reason that people shouldn't be taking shots at the dude, right? Looking at how he served the country. The whole thing for me was I just kept waiting to get updates. Is he okay? And I'm sitting there. This happened during, let's see, I guess we had just started the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday. And it just obviously it held up the game for about an hour. And I'm just thinking, is he going to fall? It was a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. What's up, Thunderman? Was thinking the skydiver may have introduced a new revenue stream for Tech football. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Had to be. It just looked like such a helpless feeling when you know you're out of control. The wind just carried him over there. Dwight called me about it too Saturday evening, and he's going to have some interesting thoughts on it. You don't want to miss that. Michigan didn't get a single touchdown at their spring game until the last minute of the game. I know what Coach Elmo is going to want to talk about. Remember a couple of weeks ago, Coach Elmo said, if you've got depth, if you can't differentiate your starters from your depth, that's not a good thing. Well, the team that was set up to win did not win on Saturday in Blacksburg. So we'll get his take on that. The depth beat the starters for the most part. But again, the main thing is injuries. You get some work in, the fans get excited. I don't think Grunkenmeyer surprised anybody on that staff. They know what they have, and he's going to be really good, in my opinion. And we know Luke Reynolds. We've talked about it since he came, right? He had the potential to be the cog in that offense, and I think the tight ends are going to be massive. But if you're going to read things into it, the phrase constant pass rush bothers me. That's good on one side. But why could the offensive line not adjust? But it's an exhibition. It's an extension of practice. That's all it is. We're talking about practice. So, yeah, you just take it all with kind of a grain of salt. But some of the hyperbole I saw from the people that were watching it, too, were funny on the other side of it. I mean, the dude who said that Reynolds is the best tight end Tex had in 50 years. Okay. And I guess the rest of it will end this. I guess some teams have a different week schedule. I'm interested to hear what UAB did. Remember, Todd said they weren't going to have a spring game. They're having different things down there. So I'm interested to see how that went for him and those guys. And I think coaches have certain things they wanted to see out of guys, again, stuff we don't know about. And then they make notes and they go. I thought the one thing they were allowed to show, I thought the contest of trying to catch a punt or a kickoff, whatever that was cool. That was pretty exciting. And I think one guy caught it, but watching those folks try to catch the ball was pretty funny. But see, that's the kind of thing a spring game needs. That gets the crowd involved, makes people, they're into that. And that was needed too, that whole thing after the parachute incident. Yeah, exactly. Thunder. Sacks were fingertip touch. Yeah. From attending, you could see positive or negative depending on what you're looking for. That's right. Exactly. And, from a personal thing, you have Brent Pry back calling the defense. You've got a new offensive coordinator who's never done it before. So they'll learn and they'll get a better feel for personnel, things like that. But I'm glad to hear that the crowd was good and the news for the parachuter was good. And the injuries, hopefully not anything that's going to be lingering, which is good. And now they'll move on to the off-season program, finish up the semester, get into the summer. And it'll be here before you know it. I know it feels like 4 months away, the August practices, but it'll be here before you know it. Sorry, I didn't sleep well. Didn't have a great sleep night. It's the worst feeling in the world. You're sitting there and you're tired and your mind keeps going and you're like, I can't sleep. Yeah, I heard Hune was not very good. Yeah, he held onto the ball way too long. I remember a few weeks ago, we were told he was going to some of these clickbait sites that cover tech, trying to act like it was going to be a quarterback battle. We told you then that was just stupid. Yeah, he got sacked a lot. Yeah, he just held on to the ball too long. Again, it's one thing to be out there in shorts throwing open to wide open receivers. That's why you got recruited to a Division I school, because you can look good in shorts throwing the ball when it's just a center and you rolling out or you going back in the pocket. It's one thing when you have a game situation. That changes everything, even a spring game. There will not be a quarterback competition for the starting position in Blacksburg. There was never going to be a competition. The pecking order was as they were signed out of the portal. Grunkenmeyer, Baker, 1 and 2. That's not going to change barring an injury. And I think Grunkenmeyer might end up being one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the entire conference. I really do. And I don't need to see, this is what I kept telling people A lot of people at Radford went. They're season ticket holders. I was like, I don't need to see Ethan Grunkenmeyer on Saturday. I watched him play real games against really good teams. I watched him riddle Indiana for 3.5 quarters and almost pull the upset of the year in that league and nationally. I don't need to worry about, as long as he didn't get hurt, I don't need to see any stat line from Ethan Grunkenmeyer in a spring game. I already know he's good. He went on the road and played Iowa. He's good. He understands how to play the game. He'll fit right in. It's the same offense, basically. He'll be fine. Watch out. We might be having a quarterback battle. No, you're not. Just stop. Yeah, I think that's pretty much every coach for me. This, not just Franklin. Guys in the clubhouse know who the starters are, right? This is what Dwight Vick has taught us over the many years we've been together. Doesn't matter whether there's any public announcements. The guys who go in there know who their best 22 are, even the backups. Now, does Tech have all 22? Probably. Somebody asked me that. Yeah, I would say they have a really good idea. Sure. If not, we'll ask Todd that question. He just went through it. Did you have your 22, and how many guys out of that 22 changed after the weekend, or did it change? They didn't have their full allotment of running backs. That'll make the team look different. So it is what it is. It's a spring game. Spring games are for fans. Most coaches would probably tell you, and that's why I think we're seeing them happen a lot less across the country, that they'd rather not have the whole pomp and circumstance of a spring game. But they needed to have one in his first year, and all the hype and all the promotion and so forth. So it made sense. But I think overall coaches would like to see that go away. And just do a lot of, like Todd and them did. South Carolina changed theirs into just another kind of a scrimmage practice. And they probably got more work done without any eyeballs on them than trying to put on a certain type of show for the crowd. So, yeah, there you go. Good reports from everybody who actually was able to attend the spring game. Apparently the kickers look pretty good, right? Everybody looked good, even though that wasn't live either. But you want to see guys make kicks, and you want to see punters boom the ball. Apparently that looked good. And it's a good thing, because you don't want to be struggling in your kicking game. In any way, shape, or form, do you want to be struggling in your kicking game? And Tech has had a long and strong history of good kickers. So, yeah, getting a lot of text messages for people who were at the game. So it's kind of cool reading those. Thank you, everybody, on our professional door text line. And thanks, everybody, by the way, who came through on Saturday, because I didn't know. I was flying blind, just getting updates. Many of you sent me the pictures of the parachuter before I got it off on social media. So that was awesome. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think special teams will be okay. Brown will be potentially a game breaker back there. And I think he's going to have a good year in the slot as a receiver. Franklin has not been a big wide receiver developer because his offense has never really relied on that. And that's the other side of it. People try to, I think we can criticize anything, but I don't look at that as a slight. What I look at it as, he focuses on a pro-style offense, the running game, which I love. I love 2 tight ends. And controlling tempo at the line of scrimmage. To me, that's football. You need some game breakers. You need some guys who can stretch the field. Sure you do. But I am so tired of spread offenses. I don't know about you. I am so tired of spread offenses. I like somebody who's got a mindset of, we're going to line up and we're just going to push you around. What Coach Beamer said it all the time to me. Our whole program was predicated on running the football. If we couldn't run the football, which I couldn't in my first few years here, we lost a lot of games. It almost got me fired. He came right in my studio after Tech had hit big, because the show didn't start to 2001, and this is Virginia Tech. They're now a national team. When Dave Brain gave him another opportunity, Coach Brain, by the way, said, if you can't start running the football, that's going to tell me that you don't belong as a head football coach. I'll never forget that. He sat in the studio. That was during the summer. I've told you that story, right? I was at the grocery store in Kroger and Radford. And apparently Cheryl and the kids were out of town. And he was like, I said, Coach, we're getting ready to do the show. Come on up. I might do that. And he comes driving in. Just sat there with Coach Beamer the whole damn show. People took call. It was great. Things that wouldn't happen today, Alex, for 500. But Dave Brain told him that. And Coach Elmo would back that up. If you can't start running the football, you don't belong as a head football coach. And they started to figure that out. And the rest, as they say, is history. And this is something that James Franklin does. That's what he does. We'll talk to Coach Elmo about these things. What was it that he liked? What was it that he didn't like? What was it that surprised him a little bit? Let me know what you think. But we'll get Coach Elmo's thought. I don't think we ever really talked to him about a spring game. Have we? Yeah, I did see that, Wayne. Is that Northwestern State? Is that where he's going? Isaiah Vick? Is that right? Tebow says they haven't been practicing together, but for so long. Quarterback, wide receiver is all about timing and getting the feel for each other. It will come. Yeah, but, James Franklin's offense has never been one that's, been massively wide receiver driven. Well, we'll get Dwight to tell us all about that as well. Yeah. I know Franklin uses the tight ends, but did they run any snaps under center on Saturday? I don't know. Yeah, did they do that at all? Was it everything out of the shotgun? Do y'all remember? Did y'all pay attention to that? I mean, I don't know. I can't say. I didn't watch. They They did. There you go. So they did have him under center, which I think you need to have. Yeah. All right, joining us now on the program. There he is. He's Coach Elmo. What's going on, Coach? How are you? By the way, are you back home now? Are you back home?
Yes, I am. And Friday, so recovered Saturday.
Yeah.
Up with rest Saturday.
Coach, you've been involved in a lot of spring games over the years, right? Spring events, whatever you want to call them. What has always been your mindset? Has it depended on the situation you're in, or is this just something that coaches realize you can get some work done, but it's basically just an extension of what you've been working on for the past, month or 6 weeks anyway?
Well, going back even to my playing days, when I was a position coach, I always approached it the same way I did as a player. In order to earn respect from your opponent, you better earn your teammates' respect. And I've always looked at the spring game that way. However it's divided up. When that game was over with, I wanted to make sure that I earned the respect of my teammates in a game situation. You do that in the course of spring with your work ethic and things of that nature. I remember Phil Mosser telling me, we were teammates at Ferrum and then ended up being teammates at William Mary, him being 1 year ahead of me. He told the players at William Mary, says, "You think I'm nuts? Wait till this guy gets here." This guy's insane. And but that was very important to me. And I made that a very important factor of the game. Hopefully it was held as a game. Today, I listened to you earlier, you talked about Kirby Smart. Well, I know my experiences at LSU, and I don't think Nick changed. I hate to make those speculations. This was 26 years ago. But at LSU, it was a game.
Yeah.
And it was a running clock, particularly, I think, in the second half, it was a full running clock. But it was a game.
Did Kirby get that? Did Kirby get that from Nick Saban? Is that what?
Whether he did or he didn't, but I'm sure it had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Been with it so long, at Alabama, LSU, and the Dolphins, but particularly the two colleges. So, Wisconsin, Barry, it was, and you have philosophies. I've been with some teams, they've had a draft, which I did not like, when it was all said and done. Especially, it depends, like the teams like at UVA and Virginia Tech, when prior in the spring, prior to the fall of 2 or 3 wins, you got to turn this thing around. We went from a 2-win to a 9-win season. And at Virginia, we went from a 3-win to an 8-win season. And just the experiences. And I'll tell you, the spring game was a really critical time to establish the foundation. You began to lay those 20 days prior. Now it's only 15, but it was 20 in the day. And you're laying that foundation. And you're going over situations. And then Barry always, his thing was at Wisconsin, we were going to have 40,000, 45, 50,000 at Wisconsin. And he wanted those redshirt freshmen, kids that have never been in front of a big crowd.
Yeah, yeah.
And he wanted that experience because when you hit the Big Ten, you go into Kinnick Stadium, you go into Ohio State, you go into Michigan. It's like they are sold out. And they're fun places to play. The away games were just as much fun as the home games in the Big Ten.
I bet so.
And the SEC. But he wanted the experience of the young kids, especially returners, punt returners, kick returners, feeling that moment of now the crowd's involved. It's easy to do a spring scrimmage when the place is empty, but now you got a crowd there. then where's the distractions? You know,
Right.
who can
Right.
cancel the noises? So he wanted to find that out. And, you know, you really, I remember we had Dick Vermeil, great coach, was visiting us at Nebraska, and Bill Callahan had him in, and I thought he had an appropriate way of describing spring, or particularly programs that are trying to reboot themselves. He said it's just like remodeling a house. He said, first of all, you have to have the foundation, which nobody can see. The outsiders can't see the foundation. And then all the outsiders see is the exterior. And it still may look like crap, you know, as it starts to develop. But the key is the interior. And each room represents the section of your football team. One room, the DB room, the running back room. And how is that remodeling going from the inside out? And so, but I do think the spring game, I know in 1993 at Virginia Tech, when we got there, we always went good against good. I think Todd mentioned that at UAB.
He did.
Because your percentages of injuries really diminish. 80% of your injuries in a practice situation, even that for a game, was caused by what I call train wrecks. As soon as one guy's on the ground, it's a train wreck, and that's an ankle or a knees coming out of that train wreck. So the better the talent, the better the player, the better the body bounce, the less you're going to be on the ground causing you're going to be on the ground, but you're not causing train wrecks.
Yeah.
So we went ones against ones. Our spring game, we did not go best. You know, there's a draft. Some people do drafts. Some people do best against the rest. At Wisconsin, it was the best against the rest, and we spotted the rest 21 points. You know, so we had to come from behind to win the spring game, and I thought that was an interesting scenario. And it was live. Quarterbacks were live. It was a full scrimmage. Quick whistles on the cues, but
sure,
it was bullets were flying.
I like that.
Yeah, it was best against the rest with the 21 spotted points. So you had your first team, you had to play. You had to come back from a 21-point deficit, which was interesting at Wisconsin, my 3 years there. But most of the places I'd been, if I had anything to do with it today, which I don't, probably reasons why that I'm sitting here with you, is I would go ones against ones. One defense versus one offense. And then it'd be two offense versus two defense, and that's how it split the teams up.
Well, I like that.
Because I'm gonna get an eval, good against good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try to diminish the injuries and the quarterbacks, the jerseys coming off. And especially, like I told you, my evaluation, my eyes, when I saw Grunkemeyer against Iowa and the other teams, the most consistent thing I saw was, he had it, he's a young guy. Was a freshman or a true or red shirt. I don't know. But I know this, he pressure, like most quarterbacks, he flinched. He flinched in the Iowa game particularly. And that was one thing I said, and that'll come through experience. I'm not measuring his toughness, his courage. It's got nothing to do with it. That happens, and a lot of times the problem with today's football is you have a quarterback that's got, all the accolades, all the tools, and looks great, and all of a sudden you get into a game and the bullets are flying, and here come the interceptions or, illegal procedures, and basically it's the expense of a loss. You find out what this kid can and can't do on game day as opposed to practice time.
100%.
I do think, unless like when I'm at Marshall and you got Byron Leftwich, I think everybody's heard of him,
Yeah, he was pretty good, wasn't he?
His junior, whether his junior and senior year, particularly I was here a senior, and nobody's going to touch him. And if any of our defensive players touch him, we'd have had a problem. No one touches that. I get that. But if you've got Like I've always said about Kyron Jones. When I first spring he was there, the jerseys were off him, and he looked like $1 million. Very consistent in the inconsistent world, and then all of a sudden you find out the expense of a loss, what he can't do, and that's so ones versus ones and live, and be smart with the quarterback, for sure. But that's been my experiences, and again, my theme to the players was you earn your teammates' respect right now. I mean, you're doing it in the body of practice, but now we're in a game situation. It's not the winning and the losing. It's, win your battle. Win your battle. When that player at the end of that spring game, you'd want your offensive lineman, whoever going to the D lineman, go, I don't know if I'll ever face another more relentless player than you during the season. So you build your confidence that way. Coach Saban always said, we're looking for Freddy Krueger. The guy, you can't kill him. He just keeps coming back.
Yeah, it just keeps coming back.
And that's what you want and I think coming out of the spring game. But looking at it's interesting. The big headlines was the tight ends, which doesn't surprise me.
No.
At all. I think should be as good a tight end room as there is in the ACC. I'm not going to say nationally. That's not fair to anybody.
No. Right.
As far as ACC talent, like I've always said, I think Benji Gosnell, is an NFL prospect. I'm not saying he's going to make a team or put him in the Hall of Fame, but I think he should be in someone's camp. I'd have him in the camp, and then, the big questions I have is, you hear about the freshman, the Hune kid, and, that again, if it's not live, and if he has a bad day, then that's a red flag.
That's a red flag, yeah.
Under a big crowd, big circumstances, first game, but that's okay. Sometimes that has to happen. You've got to have failure to achieve success. Rick, one thing I used to do with the players in a meeting, I'd have one player come up and I said, untie the knot in your shoe in front of the team or the group. And I said, okay, when I clap my hand, I want you to close your eyes and tie that knot back. Not lace the shoe up, but tie that knot as fast as you can. So I'd do it and he'd do it. And I'd have the team or the group get up and give him a standing ovation. I said, do you know at one point in time you could not do that? Do you understand that? And plus, your goal, you had to go out and play, and there was no way you were going barefoot or in your good shoes. You had to, this was a had to and then want to goal to learn how to do this. So you had hands show you time and time again, over and under. And then you're doing it by yourself and there's failure. And now you got to ask for help again. But eventually you got so good at that skill, so good at it, because it is a skill that you can do with your eyes closed. That's what we're trying to do to teach you how to play this game, that you get so good at it, you can do it with your eyes closed. And that takes a lot of failure. Along with the reps comes failure. So a game like that, that's a good thing. Don't read into it as a bad thing. That's a good thing. Sad part is you just wish it was live. You wish he had those stats or whatever he had
against the bullet. Yeah,
because that's the only way he's going to learn. He at some point in time, if he's in the too deep, I'm taking the jersey off him at some point in time.
Right.
I am. If he's the number 2 and he ain't, I'm not going to go. All of a sudden, Grunkmeyer starts, he gets hurt, he got to go in the game, and the bullets are flying, but or get him snaps versus VMI as fast as you can, So, but then my questions. Here's my biggest question. I wrote some notes down. Where was Daniel? My biggest questions with personnel. I wish I was at the game. Is Daniel Jennings, a kid from Princeton, the 6'2", 250-pound running back out of high school. That was a Penn State kid that redshirted. that he was a portal kid from Virginia Tech. I would love, any of the listeners know, I would love to see where they put him. You know, what position did they have him in? Because when I looked at him,
you liked him, yeah.
He was a $3 sign to me. You know, he was a $3 sign.
A $3 sign guy, yeah.
Yeah, you know, don't forget 4 was All-American, 3 All-Conference, 2 was starting a winner, and 1 make a contribution in terms of value. But I really liked him. And then I was wondering if the Brown kid had punt return to caught punts or kickoffs, you know, just if he back there, whether it was live or not. So those were some questions that I would have. But I just thought, you know, if the quarterbacks aren't live, and I don't know how they split them up, ones against ones, best against the rest, or draft.
He had an even split up, is what he wanted the team to kind of be as even as they didn't do best on best. No, good on good.
Well, see, that's not fair. I mean, all of a sudden you know, I don't know where their offensive line was with their quarterbacks, hoping they had their ones with their number one or number 2 quarterback for sure. So you can get an eval. You know, a lot of times if Hune was getting harassed, well, that you may have some offensive line issues. You know, who knows?
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, because the reports I saw was the pass rush was, quote, constant. So that's good on that side, but
good news, bad news.
Yeah, could that be bad news potentially on the other side? Right? With the
you know, an offensive line, just like DBs, same thing. I remember between our transition at Wisconsin between 1987 and 97 and 98, and from the spring to the fall, you know, we were able to at least, because we had 2 redshirt freshman corners, and which eventually ended up starting for us on the 2 Rose Bowl teams, and both NFL players. We didn't know. We were just hoping they could play at Wisconsin, let alone the NFL. But they developed into NFL players. But the transition from the spring to the fall was tremendous. And, you know, offensive line-wise, they got 2 years of work. They got to squeeze into 1. They've got some talent, even true freshmen coming in if they're there in January. And some of the portal kids, like the kid from Oklahoma, love to have seen how he had done, how he transitioned. You know, I mean, there's very few Power 4 starting O-linemen transferring out of Ohio State or Alabama if they're starting for them. They'll find the money for them if they're starting. If they're backups, well, they're backups for a reason. You know, well, maybe Oklahoma's backup is good enough for Virginia Tech. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you about that, because it kind of fell under what you had told us a couple of weeks ago. If you always it's a red flag for you when you hear about teams talking about their depth and not their starters. Well, the depth beat the starters, or the team that was heavily favored. Chris Coleman was writing about that. He had the Maroon team double-digit favorites, right, when you looked at the personnel, yet the white team won. Is that a concern, or is it, or can you not bring much into that? So
it could be, you know, I mean, you know, that I think it's you know, and maybe you were able to find some competitive starters out of that group in the spring game. You know, hey, we've said this, we've told you this story numerous times, and Todd and I were talking about it this past week at UAB with the staff with Jeff Holland. We didn't find him in the spring game. We found him in a 120-play scrimmage, which he took 100 straight snaps and never came out. Never. We were trying to get him to go to offensive line. We weren't trying to run him off. He was a great kid, 3.8, brilliant student, Western Branch player, you know. And all of a sudden, Sunday, we come back with Todd and I look at the film and go, we found one. He ended up being in the 3-man rotation. I mean, we're ready to ship him to the O-line till after that day. So maybe, hopefully, in the spring game, they found a player on the, quote, white team. But I'd have spotted him, you know, points, 17 points, make that Maroon team come back and beat him.
I like that. I think that
that's what Lee Berry did. Spotted 21 points. You know,
that's cool.
We had Ron Dane, and he was live. Now, he didn't play a whole lot, but he was
live.
And our we had one quarterback, whether he was live or not, hell, he was like a fullback anyway playing quarterback, Mike Samuels. He couldn't throw a spiral. I mean, he was god-awful, so we went live anyway.
He just wasn't good. He just wasn't a good player.
No.
Coach Wayne asks, he says, of course, you were at Wisconsin, notorious for their offensive lines. Is it leverage or speed the most important thing against a line like what Wisconsin put out there every year to gain pressure?
You mean against? Well, one of the biggest teams, one of the teams that really did as good a job against us in the Big Ten was Purdue. Because Purdue and Brock Spack was the D coordinator in the Purdue-Wisconsin game. They really limited the running attack to a point. We literally had to win both those games on the kicking game and on defense, but we're effective enough on offense to put points on the board. We had 7 interceptions on Drew Brees in 2 years. So that's 4 in the red zone. So, which I'm really proud of from that perspective.
Yeah, sure.
But they gave Wisconsin the biggest issues, and they were like Virginia Tech or like Washington was. Brock had, Coach Spack had, took kids that, linebackers and ends to tackle, corners to safeties to create the speed. He had a Pac-10 defense in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And they were very good for 2 or 3 years outside of having the great quarterback. So yeah, that gave us the biggest issues was the speed guys, but the spread offense has changed everything. It's just changed everything. But still, the guys, you look at Kirby at Georgia, you look at Nick at Alabama, you can ask any NFL scout, who are the most physical teams in college football that you go to see? And it's Alabama and Georgia. And that's why the NFL likes drafting those guys, because they know who they've played for. Kirby, I don't know if I mentioned this to you. I heard Kirby on an interview. Kid came into his office and wanted to get in the portal. He was going to get in the portal. He thought his practices were too physical, and he was concerned about his health. And he told him to go, and he said, well, we're going to make sure wherever you go, we're going to schedule your team.
Yeah, he was refreshing. He was talking to Phil Steele, who does the Phil Steele magazine, right? And Phil was down at the Georgia game. Phil was talking about the conversation you had with Kirby about going with his starters, good on good, full live speed. He goes, Kirby looked at him and said, why the hell did we pay this much money to bring these guys in here? Why would we not want them to go head to head and make it a real football game? And he goes, and he said what you said about the injuries too, Coach. He said, we're going to have a lot less injuries when we have our good players.
No, you are. And here's the thing. I told Todd when I got to Virginia Tech, I remember telling Todd, I said, your body is like tanning leather. When you do this, that hurts. I'm telling you, it hurts. Well, you keep doing that about 100 times a day, and that hand just gets you. You're tanning leather. You got to get that body used to this impact. Now, here's the thing: if you have to develop toughness in your program in college football, you're done. Don't even bother playing. I'm going to recruit it. I'm recruiting toughness and effort.
Right.
Now I'm going to recruit that. Okay. Now we still got to establish the culture of being a physical football team, which to me, your physicality comes out of your timing. Like, you're boxed. Haymakers hurt nobody. It's that 6-inch son of a gun that just, and every muscle is just all of a sudden it's utilized. Every muscle, and that hurts. So your physicality also comes by being good fundamentals in terms of your blocking and block protection or tackling. And so there's a lot of ways you become. So if you've got to sit there and do Oklahoma drills and bowl in the ring to develop toughness, you're trying to develop toughness, you forget it. Just cancel the season.
You're done. You're done.
No, you're done. So get the resumes out because you're done. So the best thing about when you when you watch Ellis, you watch our practice, I'll tell you, if you ever put a spring scrimmage or preseason scrimmage at Wisconsin, you could not tell if it's live or what we used to call high and hard. The only way you could tell is the end result was the running back or receiver going to the ground. But you could not tell. And like I said, when I turn my back on practice, I want to hear that practice.
Yeah.
I gotta hear communications. Hampton High School. I loved watching Mike Smith's high school practices because I could close my eye. The coaches, there was not one voice raised, but what you heard when that ball snapped was beautiful music with the sounds of those pads cracking, and no one's on the ground. No one's on the ground.
When I remember it's funny you say, I remember interviewing Bud Foster once, and he said, I never had to worry about practice. All I could hear was Vince Hall and Xavier Debe, and they had everything completely under control. I could turn my back and walk away and not have to worry about, I'm looking at the next couple things, then I know that this series is going to be taken care of because those guys have taken care of it. Just what you're saying.
The biggest thing with depth, I've always said injury creates depth sometimes. I know when 93, when we lost Drakeford and Tony Banks in the pit game, we had to go down to Miami. And we had 6 DBs we traveled with. That's all. That's all we had. So I told Torrey and Gray, I said, Torrey, you got to take every snap of practice with the 1s and the 2s. Because I moved him to free safety. He was playing rover first. I said, you're going to free. Two totally different positions in 1 week. And I put William Yarborough at corner, and Stacey Henley went back to rover. But I had 6 DBs going down to Miami on a 2:00 game, 1:00 game in the heat. And he took every snap, 1s and 2s. And all of a sudden, when Banks and Drakeford came back, especially Banks, he went, well, we had depth. Because we were able to, we didn't win the Miami game, but let me tell you, we beat them. We just lost the game.
Yeah,
defensively, we beat them. They had Ray Lewis and Warren Snap. We couldn't buy a first down.
Yeah, those guys are pretty good, weren't they? Those 2 guys.
Yeah, we held them 270 yards of offense, the lowest output back in the day that no one ever done that. But so injury can create depth. And if you've got a great player like a Ron Dane or a Lawyer Malloy as a safety, or some of the great All-Americans that had good fortune to coach, that guy behind him is not going to be very good.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Coach Oates always said that. He just said, we're trying to let's build this one day at a time, one player at a time. As he went into programs trying to, he always said 3 ways to improve a program. Your seniors have to be playing at their best, or you got to start deleting and adding. And that easier today because you got the portal.
Right.
Tougher in the day because you had to do it within your roster.
Yeah.
Or with a freshman or with a junior college kid. So it was harder, much harder.
So what's the most important thing now, Coach? After spring, right? Guys are going to take some time off before you get cranked up again. What are coaches trying to do now with these guys after they've assessed?
Oh, this is the key point, and where your evaluations of who has opportunities to be an All-American, who has an opportunity to be All-Conference, who has an opportunity to start for us. And I was not assuming, but we're talking about an 8-9 win team, not just start.
Right.
Can we win 8 and 9 games with this guy in a starter? Who can make a contribution and who's not ready? And you got to start. And what from a position coach to head coach accountability, he's counting on you, and you're going to earn half your salary deciding who gives us the best opportunity to win a football game. Which player? And this is where you earn your salary as an assistant coach.
Sure.
And that's why you've been hired. Okay. And not telling him what he necessarily wants to hear either. When I've been in that meeting before. And then the communication between assistant to the D coordinator, to the head coach, and to the player, the assistant to the player. which is the most important one. And you got to have a game plan. Okay, rank your best defensive backs from 1 to whatever. Rank them. Okay, then now figure out, okay, so I got 1 through 4. There's my starting 4. All right. Then now you start to, okay, who, when you talk about backups, who's the contributor? What's that next 6 through 10 or 6 through 10? Which of these guys? Where's the third corner? Where's the third safety? I'm not looking for 4 corners or 4 safeties. I'm looking for 2 starters and a third one. I'm looking for 2 safeties and a third one. Okay, and I'll build it from there. Then I got to sit back and say, okay, if we play this guy, is he a play until replaced? Are we looking to, he's going to play, but are we looking to replace him? In other words, I've got a portal kid or a freshman that I've got to develop as we go, and with preseason and as the season develops, which guy can I figure into? All right, we can now take this guy and replace the starter with the better athlete. He's just not ready yet. My job is to get him ready. So there's all sorts of different scenarios that you're. And I know as you talk to Todd was, I've never seen anything like this in college football in my life. Todd he all of a sudden mixed and matched. Like the last week I was there, he spun everything around. He took kids playing that never played this position and moved them for that week and created a team. It was like having, all of a sudden, he's got 3 new teams, with different, so he could evaluate them, put them in position, see what they could handle, expand them. And here's the thing. Now they got to come into a meeting and can't go, I've heard this 2 weeks ago. So you got their attention right away, because especially when you're new,
I like
especially
that.
when you're a portal kid, because you're trying to impress a coach. So you got to come to a meeting with your antennas on. You got to have the on button, and you got to track that speed. And then after practice, going in, watching the tape by yourself. That was the thing that impressed me the most at UAB, which, all those kids know they have a chance. They have a chance to play, and because you got 35 brand new players.
Right.
So I've never seen anything like that. And I'll tell you, it was effective. I was like, I never would have done that. Never.
That's interesting. I have to ask him about that. He's coming on here a little bit. I have to ask him about that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it was a fascinating case and study of how to create depth, by moving kids in the middle of practice, in towards the end of practice, and put them in positions, especially in the perimeter. The safety going to what he calls the star, the nickel's position, or the one other safety going to the money's position, which is an outside linebacker with defensive back talents. He's playing with 5 DBs basically, and like most people are today because of spread offense.
Yeah.
80% of the time you're seeing 3 receivers in the game.
Yeah,
80.
That's true.
That's why, consequently, what I think James Franklin is doing is the answer. Create broad blocking surfaces with multiple tight ends and force those little guys big on small. Big guys versus small guys. And that's why you're seeing in the NFL too. I think you're seeing a lot of that. I think that kind of football's making a comeback to a point.
I hope so. I was talking about that earlier. I'm so tired of the spread offense.
Because the defenses have adjusted to it getting more speed.
They have.
Really, when you're looking at it, he's actually playing with 6 DBs or 5.5. The one guy is actually a DB, but he's got linebacker enough girth at the linebacker's position that he can go as an inside guy, but also go as an outside guy and have some man skills. When I was at Purdue, we never had a substitute. We had a linebacker named Landon Johnson. He was our best nickel guy. I didn't need the 5th DB. He could play man on the slots as a linebacker. It was phenomenal. He was a high draft choice, started in the NFL for years. That's a freak. It's hard to find that.
You think Franklin will run 12 personnel like that? you think that's what you expect to see for?
I wouldn't be shocked if he ran 13 personnel.
For
Tom Coughlin turned Boston College around. You talk about a case and study. He did it. He did it like Barry did at Wisconsin.
Yeah,
big
right.
old multiple tight ends. In 1993, he beat our ass so bad. I told Frank, I got a bad game plan. We're not worth a crap.
I forgot that was the BC game. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I called that game with my forehead buried in the desk. And told Frank, if you fire me after this game, I'd have no problems with it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna fire some players before he fires my ass. And I did.
Was that the game you said something like, "Yeah, we have a game plan. They're just not very good at it"? What was it?
I said, Coach, I got a bad plan, and they're not executing it. And then all hell broke loose because Todd and Bud came to me at the halftime. You can ask Todd this. They came to me and said, "Hey, sidelines is a disaster. Kids are infighting and fighting with not necessarily physical, but it was ugly." I said, "Well," and we had a bowl bid on the line. We're 6-2. We lost to West Virginia by a damn point for kick the field goal. We beat them. They went undefeated. We lose to Miami 21-2. Defensively playing our asses off. So we're a good football team, and we got a bowl bid ready to go on the line, and they beat our offensively. We actually played well. We played well enough to win, scored 34 points. We gave up like 40 something. So we had to go play. We had 2 more games left. We had to play Syracuse the next week. And so I went into that halftime, and that game was over. And I told one young man, I said, "You don't even come out. Just sit here." I had a team meeting, came back. I said, "We will get this straight." After that BC game, and we ended up, I fired a couple of people, that was Torian Gray's first start, just made some changes. I changed some game plan stuff up, and we had Syracuse 21-0 by that. Ended up beating them 42-something, then ended up beating Virginia and winning 8 games and going to the bowl. So it happens.
It happens. I like it. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
But Coughlin had multiple tight ends. He beat Penn State with that, and this is when they had won 3 games. He took the program over, and they only won 3 or 4 games. And Jopa, they were like in the top 15, top 10, and he put 42 on them. He would take 3 tight ends and put them all into the boundary because everyone's making field calls. So next thing you know, he's got a tight end and a double tight end wing, with the man on the line of scrimmage into the boundary. And they had no clue what to do with it. And they ran that sweep into that boundary, and it was over. Game over. So I'd be disappointed if he doesn't do that, in a conference. That's how you become a better defense too.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me.
Exactly.
Trust me. The thing about Coach Mortensen at UAB, he's going to, and again, anytime as an offensive coordinator, you work for Nick Saban, you change your, especially your offensive coordinators, whether it's Sark or Kiffin, or Coach Mortensen, you change your whole philosophy. Everything changes about how you see the game, how this game is perceived as a total function of field position and the clock. Those 2 things, the clock comes into play. A lot of spread coaches could give a damn that it's next play, hurry up. When you go to a practice with a spread offensive coaches and the quarterback throws an interception, all 6'5" offensive assistant coaches, where their heads are? In the script for the next play.
Yeah, yeah.
Or running back fumbles the ball, their heads go right to the script. Next play, hurry up, let's go, next play. I go, will somebody, what to this kid just to make me happy? He just turned the ball over. Come on.
I know. All right. Well, that's cool. It's a good breakdown, Coach. We appreciate it. That's good. That's good.
I don't know about the breakdown, Rick, but I appreciate you letting me talk some ball.
No, it's great. Because the next steps are very important. I think we kind of forget. Everybody just thinks things stop, but they don't. They never stop.
Oh, no. This is where you're going to earn, you're going to earn half your salary with the evaluations of your talent.
Yep.
And because that head coach is trusting you make those just, here's the information, and he can trump whatever. I've been in those staff meetings. If he feels like not you've misevaluated him, but he sees different, and that's okay. Call accountability, but then you got to sit there as an assistant coach. How much do you trust your eyes, and are you ready to, go on the chopping block for what you believe, what you see? If you said, I believe Rick Watson gives us the best opportunity to win games. Okay. And here's the whys. It's, that's the key. You got to be able to make sure you understand the whys. And as long as don't tell me how, give me the whys.
Yeah.
If you know how, you'll be in charge. If you know how, you'll have a job. If you know why, you'll be the boss.
Yeah, right. No, that's all. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's good. It's always good to remember. It's a good way to put it. All
right, I'll end on that one, Rick. Thought for the day, baby.
All right. Well, I'm glad you're now landing a little bit. You can relax a little bit now. You've been relaxing.
Hey, listen, I'm getting back into my routine. Work out, run my errands, take a nap, go to happy hour. The only problem is Grantham's putting me to work. I got to break Navy down for him, and then New Mexico, I got to break the Hawaii game down with the air raid because I've had Mike Leach experiences.
Ooh, that's cool.
So I got to break these people down. So somewhere it's going to take my nap time away from me, buddy. Next time I'm on this show, if you have me on Friday, I'm not going to be a happy camper. I'll be like that irritable little child.
Just sitting there like this. Hi, Rick.
No nap. I need a nap, damn it.
Oh, that'll be great, though, having you look at – oh, that'll be cool, getting your scout of other teams now. Ooh, now we're getting somewhere. That'll be cool.
It'll be fun.
That'll be cool.
Well,
all right,
take
Coach.
care, buddy.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you, man. Take care. Coach Elmo. How great was that? Great stuff, man. That gets you – again, the knowledge, it just blows me away. We learned so much from Coach Elmo. He's done it all. He's seen it all. And that's a great reminder. It doesn't stop now. I think a lot of people think, okay, everybody just kind of will reconvene here in a month. No. Tell me why, not how. That's good advice. That's good advice. I want to thank Family Fencing. Good advice is to get a free quote from them at 540-200-8294. Mark Hunley, McClellan Chiropractic, live chat, great stuff. Thank you so much, everybody in the chat room. Thanks to Pulaski County Sports Entertainment, the presenting sponsor of this program, Little River Heating and Air, Charles Lee, 1095 Radford Street. The attorney Ryan Pry in Radford, West Main Street in Radford, Trust and Estate Planning, our BDST fan question of the week. National Bank member FDIC, the exclusive banking partner of me and the show. Professional Door Incorporated, Travis Williams, residential commercial garage doors, 38 years in business, sponsor of our text line, ReadySetFund.com with Bob Christ, and Sundown Electric with the Smith Brothers. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you. NRV Super Bowl over in Christiansburg, and Lawson's Mobile Home Supply, also in Christiansburg, and Brandon at Top Shelf Apparel. It's awesome. Yeah, you can. You can tell. You can tell. Mexico's got him breaking down opponents. And I think what he said there is cool, really cool. And that's pretty much the MO on James Franklin. He's a guy that when he brings coaches in, he lets his coaches provide him that information. He's kind of more of an overseer. He's not a massive X's and O's guy, but he's going to trust those reports, just what Coach Elmo was talking about. All right, guys, what do we got? I know what I saw, but I want you to tell me. I like that. I think that's the way it should be. Have your coordinators rely on their assistants, and then the coordinators give that info to the head coach. That's the way it should be. Certain coaches aren't like that. A lot of coaches are going to just dictate regardless of your title. Right? I mean, and I don't know how productive that is, but let your coaches who work with these guys who you maybe were the ones that tipped your hand in recruiting. Here's the guys we want to give money to. We think this guy can come in here. Now that we're paying players especially, I think that becomes even more important to trust your assistants. This isn't just offering a scholarship anymore. This is, well, we gave that guy $800,000, so he better come in here and, you know what I'm saying? It changes. But that's the way I think James Franklin has operated since he was at Vanderbilt. And I think that's what you have to do. Trust your people. And then if it starts to work out that it doesn't, then that's when you have to have the conversations. How many times has Coach Elmo said the coach has brought him in, you know? So I like that. That's good. That's good. So, Wayne, I think you're probably right. So, Wayne sent, this is kind of more actually from Tech. They're looking at somewhere around 35,000 were there at the spring game. And that's just fine. For some reason, I think people had thinking that there's a number that if you didn't hit it, it wasn't going to be successful. Like it. Now, if they had 10,000 or less, like at the Virginia spring game, but anything around 30, 35, that's fine. I don't know why people are hung up on that. It was free admission. We didn't charge. Got to be honest, you're kind of just glad now that part of it's over. I know the coaches have to be glad because these things now are going to be very important going forward. The show is over. Now it's just about getting down to that integral work. Pretty cool with Todd Grantham. That shows you how that guy, that's pretty cool that he thinks out of the box like that. I want to ask him, I didn't know about that. So he's telling guys to get out of your position. We're going to put you over here. Now, they're having team meetings this morning at UAB. I don't know about you. I love this stuff. I love we're getting about as behind the scenes of what's going on across the country as you can, right? With Coach Elmo and with Todd actually working in a program right now. That I think it's cool. So if UAB is having team meetings this morning, Tech's probably having team meetings, right? You know what I mean? Georgia. I tell you one thing, man. Phil Steele, who we're going to have back on the program here soon, I'm going to ask him about the time he spent down at Georgia this weekend. And regardless of what you think of Kirby Smart, and I don't have anything against Kirby Smart, he's very honest. He's very honest. This is the way I've done it. This is the way I was taught to do it. This is why we're going to be live in spring, and it's going to be our first team versus our first team. We're paying guys a lot of money to come in here and be ready to play football after we get them ready during the 6 weeks leading up to the game. Treating them like the professionals they truly are now for the kind of money. And you got to look at Georgia, and they don't really have a budget. Georgia's going to pay $30 million or more for their roster. He may not go into those numbers specifically, but I think you can assume it. Oh, a lot of folks left early. Well, the delay didn't help, right? It was necessary to have the delay, but yeah, you're sitting there, you're ready to go at 3, and then that unfortunate incident happened, and then, yeah. Wish I could get Todd home for the Joel Hicks Memorial. Is that the golf tournament? Yeah, you guys are doing a great job promoting that. May 30th. Hey, it never hurts to ask, TP. By the way, what's up, Hot Rod? Saw Rodney Lander chime in. My former quarterback, Pulaski County High School. Hot Rod's a great coach, too. You still coaching, Rod, if you're still with us? You should be. You need to be on a football field. Who knows, TP? Maybe we can get him around. But I love this whole – since I restarted the show, and I've learned so much from this. I think we all have. It's been a nice education of how things really are. It's really cool. 27 teams. Oh, congratulations, man. Anything that can honor Coach, you eagerly do. I tell you, if I played it all, man, I'd be there, but I don't. I don't play. You should get Morris involved too, TP. here on the show. But I think we all can go into it now, the season coming up, from what we've learned, and even going into the last season. You learn a lot, man. I learn a lot. And I hope you do too. And I hope you do too. Because I like knowing I like knowing how the sauce is made. You know? Like to see what the ingredients of it look like. Instead of just always watching the finished product, it's kind of nice to kind of see how things are supposed to be made. Right? But anyway, that's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. We'll talk to Todd about how their weekend went. They didn't have a spring game, what they got out of it. And I want to ask more about that, asking guys to move into different positions. I think that's interesting. I really do. I think that's cool. So the message doesn't sour, so the message doesn't get bogged down. Go play this position. Coach, I can't play that position. Hey, you don't know till you get out there, but you're going to listen to what I have to say about trying to play that position, right? I like that. I like that a lot. No, I didn't watch. No, Ed, I didn't watch any of the NBA playoffs. No. I guess we got some disappointed people. I saw where Charlotte lost, right? Everybody was all over the Hornets. Didn't they lose their play-in game? Which is stupid, by the way, that they do the play-in game. It's dumb. Dumb. But anyway, there he is. Todd Grantham joined us. Defensive coordinator at the UAB Blazers. Hey, Coach, good morning.
Good morning, Rick. How you doing this morning?
Doing good, man. How was the meeting? You had an early meeting this morning.
Oh, well, it ain't quite ready
coming
yet,
up.
Rick.
That's right.
Coming up 7:30.
That's right.
So.
I keep thinking my time, but
we're an hour behind. Yeah, we're an hour behind you. So 7:30 coming up. So
all right. Well, take us inside. This is cool. You're coming out of your weekend, which I want to get into. So what now will you guys assess out of that? First of all, you didn't have your spring game because you wanted good on good. You wanted to see guys go against each other. And how did that go for you?
Well, when you say that, that's not really we had a. I mean, it's a third scrimmage per se. So like if you go back, we've already had 2 scrimmages and roughly 11 practices with our guys at positions that we see that they're going to play for us. And we've evaluated those guys, got a pretty good feel. But really, a season's a long season, things can happen. So what I wanted to do the last 4 practices was basically, okay, who are the guys that have position flexibility? Meaning, hey, is there a safety that can play another position like a nickel, which we call the star, or money linebacker? Is there a star that can go to free safety? Is there a corner that can play star or go to safety? So is there a Mike linebacker that can go to money linebacker, which that's not that big a deal, but at the same time, it is a little bit different position. So what I wanted to do the last 4 practices was take guys and put them in other positions just to see how they handled it and get an evaluation of them, okay, from that standpoint. So that's really what we started on Monday of last week with the idea of moving guys around. And the other thing is it keeps guys it keeps guys alert, meaning like, after 11 days, like the smart guys kind of figured out the concepts, what you're doing, that kind of thing. So you don't want guys to get bored either. So you always got to work to learn and those kind of things. Plus, it forced guys to work with other people. A lot of times when your ones go out there, well, I'm used to working with this guy for 11 practices. Well, then all of a sudden in the game, something happens, they got to work with somebody else. So the communication is really important. So I think it's important that you mix and match those guys to where they got to work with other people.
Yeah.
So basically what we did in the scrimmage was, it was really good on good. It was, and here's why that I think everybody can do what they want to do, but like one, from an offensive perspective, your offensive line is your most developmental position on the team, on your team, meaning they got to work together. If they don't work well together, then you're not going to be successful. So it allows your quote five best guys or your six best guys or however you look at it to work together. Well, if you're going to work those guys together, you want the best quarterback to have those guys. Okay. And then it's still a work day. And I know that it's fun for people and all that, but it's still a work day. Well, if you're going to do that, you need to put them against the best D lineman you have. So now it turns into good on good. But the other thing it does for me is, like, I'm not going, like, let's say that they have a 8-play drive. Well, I'm not playing I'm not playing our D line 8 plays in a row. Okay. So we're gonna rotate. Okay. So by doing it that way, what I did is, whether it ones or twos didn't matter. We were rotating our rotational D line the whole game, because we were all on the same sideline. So that way a guy knows, hey man, I'm in for 4 plays. I'm in for 5 plays. I can strain, and I know that I'm going to get a break if I need it. Because if I'm out there and I know that I got to go the whole series, well, that can affect your effort. Okay.
Yeah.
And we really don't want that to happen. So it allowed us to rotate, and also it allowed us to get our backups or our rotational guys against, quote, the best guys, so that I can evaluate how they do. Okay. So anyway, I think that's important. And then from the moving guys around, it's all about how do you get the next best guy in the game. And I think this is more of an NFL, because in pro football, when I was a coordinator, look, you may have 22 guys active game day because of the way the roster is set up. So I got 22 guys. So how are you getting your 5th or 6th DB in the game? Because special teams has a factor in that, and you have to be able to have multiple or position flexibility within your unit. Okay, so really that's what we did, and the good thing about it is I came out of it with some answers of far as, what are some guys' abilities, what can they do well, how would they fit with us as far as our packages go, from that standpoint, and maybe some things that some guys need to work on. So I feel like it was a productive week. I have better answers now than I had, going into the last week, as far as what guys can do, and really excited with our work ethic and what we're doing.
I love that, though. Coach Elmo kind of explained it. He said he'd never seen that. You're just taking guys out of what they're comfortable with and putting them somewhere else. Like you said, it keeps that mess fresh, and it creates maybe depth that you didn't know about a few months ago when you brought these guys there. I love that.
Exactly.
I think that's really smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to find, because defense is about tackling the guy with the ball, okay, and they only play with one football. So how do I get my best 11 on the field? And you got to be able to have that flexibility, and also see how guys learn too. And I think it makes you a better big picture player. Meaning, okay, so if our nickel, who's an underneath player to the slot, let's say we move him to free safety. Well, in the game when he's playing nickel, he's working with the free safety, like he's right behind him. So he kind of already knows the coverage concepts of the words that we use and how we play. But now he's actually learning how the guy behind him plays. Okay. Well, I think that can help him play his position when he goes back to his original position, because now he has a better understanding what the guy behind him's doing.
Yeah.
So I think it gives you a better big picture assessment of the defense and how you can play. And then it allows you to fudge sometimes, because look, you can fudge based upon splits, based upon backfield sets, based upon receiver splits, based upon calls. I mean, formations. I mean, there's certain things you're going to get out of certain formations, and you can now fudge relative to the call. And I think it allows you some big picture things.
So now you guys are having your meeting here coming up. What kind of things are you going to go over? What kind of things are you going to talk about with your coordinators?
Really, it never stops. So what we'll do today is we'll clean up this last, this Saturday's practice, the third scrimmage, and we'll clean that up. And then, it's about ranking your players. So you'll rank the players and try to see who has position flexibility and who can go where. So from a defensive perspective, staff perspective, that allows us to put the different packages together that we'll have. And then, this week we got to have our exit meetings with players from the standpoint of, here are the things you did well. Here are the things you need to improve upon. Now, when you say that, that's not a bad thing because everybody's got to improve. I mean,
Sure.
I had DeMarcus Ware, who was the highest paid player in pro football, and I gave him a list of things to improve in July when I had him.
Right.
So, I mean, that's just part of it. But I think you also have to have ways to improve those things. Okay. So, like, for example, the players, the month of May, that's kind of like their off time, meaning once school ends and they're done with exams, they're kind of on their own. Now, I'll be honest, a lot of guys stay, and if they're here, they work out with our strength coach on their own. And so they'll get, I guess it's 2 lifts a week, but you can give them a plan for fundamentally, like, for example, let's say that I'm an edge rusher. Well, I got to work on my shoulder turn. I got to work on my torque. I got to work on my footwork. I got to work on my hands. Well, here are the things you can do on your own so that when you come back in June, because May's kind of on their own. And then June, we'll get into a little more structured deal with our ability to be with them on the field again. And it's more of OTA type atmosphere. I mean, they're in shorts and T-shirts. And look, there's a lot of things you can do then too, but you're just able to be there. So we'll be able to be on the field with them in June. And we'll basically go back to install 1 and kind of start installing again and go over that. So that part of it from a staff perspective is what we'll do the next couple of days. And then from being a coordinator, that the next part for us is one, from a recruiting standpoint, the coaches can go on the road, just evaluating players, okay, for next year, meaning we've been doing that through the month of May, and we've been evaluating players. Now, one thing that we'll do this week, which I've always kind of liked, is we'll group evaluate some guys, meaning, hey, let's take the top 5 corners and rank them. Let's take the top 5 defensive end outside backers and rank them. And then, not that anybody's wrong or right, but get an overall opinion. Because, like, hey, when I was in the National Football League, everybody raves about, Peyton Manning being, the first round pick of the Colts, right? Well, 7 days before that happened, Ryan Leaf was going to be the pick, and then it kept going back and forth between Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. Well, it's an easy decision now on who's the better player.
Sure.
But back then, it was a group decision, and it was not cut and dry like people think it is.
Right.
Okay, so
right.
So anyway, I think the more eyes you can get on people, the better. So we'll do that this week too, is kind of rank our top guys defensively and get a feel for that. And then the next thing that we'll do is do our first few opponents. We open up with Illinois, so that obviously be a challenge that we'll be looking forward to. But we also have some other games early on. So we'll look at our first 4 opponents and get a feel for them and what we need to do. And then I'll kind of go also look at just maybe 2 games of everybody in the league just to see if there's anything that's different, meaning, hey, are they a Big 12 personnel team? Are they a 13 personnel team? Are they strictly 11? Which most teams nowadays are 11, but you got to be ready for all personnel packages and things like that. So I'll kind of look at all the teams that we play just to see if there's anything unique that maybe we need to do in August, or maybe to have a plan on. So that way, when it comes that week, it's not, catching us unprepared. So basically, meeting with our players, evaluating recruits, and then preparing for next season is kind of what we'll do in the month of May. And then come June, we'll have camps and official visits, meaning we'll actually have camps on, guys will come on campus. They'll be able to work out with us, train with us, and we can evaluate them with our hands on. We'll have official visits on the weekends, and then we'll be able to work with our players during the week. So really the month of June has turned into honestly a chaotic month nowadays. So that's what we'll do the next 2 months.
And how do you personally feel about your group now that you've seen it?
Well,
I guess is there a percentage you can put on it,
Yeah, so I'll be honest with you. I love these guys. I love their work. I told them, and this is true, I said, you guys are the hardest working group I've had as a coordinator in my career. Now, that doesn't guarantee you anything other than we work our tail off. Okay.
That says a lot.
But we got to keep doing that. Right. I like our work ethic. I like our grit. Look, you can coach these guys hard, which I think is a lost thing these days, with the softness of society in general, because that's how you get better. And these guys want to get better. They embrace being coached hard. Look, they don't love it all the time, but they know it's the best for them. But we have a relationship to where they understand why and what we're trying to do. And I think the biggest thing nowadays is you got to explain why you're doing something to players. And I think if you can do that and they believe in you, they'll do anything you ask them to do. And I really do like we've established toughness. We've established physicality. Now we got to continue to finish, plays and continue to work to improve. But I really do like our work ethic and the way we approach the game. And we got to continue that pace, over the next few months and carry it into the season.
And I'm hoping that the list of guys that you kind of figure you can't count on is smaller, maybe now coming out of this too, right?
So if you're on our team, you got a role. I don't know what it is, but if you're here, you have a role. And you got to be ready for that role. So, and I think it's important that you define that for everybody, meaning, look, I have one guy that, and I've talked to him that you're going to be a specialty player for me as far as situationally, you're going to play on these down and distances and you're going to play special teams. And for a first year guy, that's pretty good. And then we'll build it from there. But I think you gotta be upfront with guys on how you see them and how we can develop you. And based upon where you are, this is what I think you need to be right now. And we work on it. So, I think relationships are important, meaning that you have to have that relationship with the guy so that you can be truthful, because players want to play well. So be truthful with them on the things they got to get better at and what you see, and here are the things that that you need to do to improve, and really just try to give everybody a role on the team, and let's go play.
Is it easier to be honest with these guys, knowing that, regardless of, how much money they're making, they're still making money now too. So
I think you got to be, one, you got to be accurate. Okay. And you got to be knowledgeable, but, I also think that my background and my resume and the things that I've done and seen and the guys I've coached, gives me the credentials to say that, you know what I'm saying? Because I know where guys want to go.
Sure. Right.
I know how guys want to play, and I know guys want to go. So it's kind of like, look, here are the things you've got to work on to be a player, and here's how we're going to get that done. And I just think it's a relationship thing. But, I think the biggest thing is showing them the reasons why, because players know. I mean, players know, like if you're a player on the team, a good player over a player that's not as good or not as talented. So I think it's just being honest with guys, but I also think it's giving them ways to improve their status or ways to improve their ability.
Yeah. Well, it makes a lot of sense. It does. And I just, I think guys, Coach used to always say, right, being coachable, but just because I'm rough on you means that it doesn't mean that I'm not impressed with you or not happy with you. It's just that I feel like you can be coached. You should look at that as something that's positive. You have to learn it as a young person, and that continues now. And the fact that what it looks like, what an NFL starter looks like, that has to be something that's impressionable.
Yeah, I really think that's one of the things I have from a strength standpoint. It's like, look, I understand where you want to go, but to do the things you want to do, here's the things you got to improve upon. And if you play well for us, that's going to help you. So I think all of that stuff's important, to the players. And look, I get it. I mean, I want these guys to have as much success as they can too. So I think it's our job to develop them to the best of their ability, to give them the best chance to, one, help us compete and win, but then also let them continue to, reach the goals they got.
Well, it's great stuff, and I can't wait to hear what comes out of the meeting here in just a little bit. I know you got to get ready to get prepared for that.
Well, it'll be pretty brief. I mean, we basically played 60 plays, which was like a half, with the idea that, we were going to play a half, and that was kind of it. So I think we got what we wanted to get accomplished, and the most important thing is we kind of got some answers from an evaluation standpoint, but, no one's hurt, and now we can get.
I was going to ask you. Good.
Now we get into the training of the next few months, getting ready for August. I think our report date's August 2nd, and we'll crank it up then. But between now and then, we got a lot of work to do. And we just got to have a plan for it, which we do, and get into the season and see how the chips fall. So we're looking forward to it.
Do you sense this? It feels like to me, it feels like there's got to be this sense of excitement too, because this is now a build to what you're building a program with this first
I
group,
think that
right?
that's
Cool.
Yeah. So I think first that starts with Coach Mortensen and his vision for how he wanted to build the program. I think his ability to be around Coach Saban for 9 years, offensively coaching the quarterbacks has allowed him to see, how you build a program from that standpoint. And, his, my vision, I mean, it really aligns with the way he wants to do things. And I see that. So I think that really helps. And, we just got to continue to work every day to get better and improve our team. And that's what we're going to do the next few months. And it'll be busy, man. That's the one thing about it. Just because the practices on the field stopped, it really doesn't stop. I mean, like,
no.
You know what I'm saying? And truthfully, nowadays, the month of June is a total chaotic month. That used to be a great time of year to be a coach. You know what I'm saying? Now that might be the worst month truthfully, it's probably the worst month of the year as for a college coach. I know when I was at Alabama, it was like 27 straight days that it was just, and really it's all because the way the rules are. Back in the day, you couldn't take official visits till, the season. Well, one time it was after the season, and you came in December because you signed in February, right? Well, then they bumped it because of early signing. Then they bumped it into, hey, you could come during the season. Well, then they said that wasn't fair. So then they bumped it to you could come in the summer. Well, typical calendar. So now you have in the month of June, you have official visits, you have unofficial visits, you have camp to evaluate not only, and truthfully, the evaluation is for the guys that are going to be freshmen and sophomores, because most of the time the juniors are seniors to be, they're on official visits per se. You know what I'm saying? So now you're looking at younger players, and you're trying to figure out how to work with your team because you're allowed to work with them for so many hours a week. And then any kind of like scouting or game planning you want to do for next season, you got to do that. So like they really took the month of June and just chopped it up and made it probably the worst month of the year for coaches.
All right, so maybe a silly question, but you open, pretty tough grounds, right? Big Ten play at Illinois. When does Illinois start to come into focus with the bigger picture?
Well, I mean,
I know it's down the line, but
it's down the line. I mean, like I've always been a guy that, like, for example, okay, so we play Navy, which will be totally different than anybody else we play, right? So we'll take some days actually in June to implement like option responsibilities, which we already have those in, maybe, but not in that format as far as, hey, who's got the dive, who's got the quarterback, who's got the pitch, right? So we'll implement that in, say, June in shorts to try to get a basic understanding, okay? Well, then some point in June or in August in training camp, we'll take 2 days and work strictly on them, because actually that's a short week, which is probably the worst thing to have for an option team, meaning that we'll have to work on them in the summer, because basically we'll play on a Saturday and we play Navy on the following Friday. So it's a short week. Ooh. And you got to go pads the whole time. Okay. When I was at Georgia and we played Georgia Tech, that's when Paul Johnson was there. And, I've always looked at, Kirby and I have always shared information as far as how to play and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know if you remember, like Georgia Southern, the fullback ran for like 280 yards on Bama one year, and like they couldn't stop him. And anyway, I was talking to Kirby, and this a little bit of Kirby's toughness deal was like, you got to go live. So I just came in on that Monday of that week and said, look, we're going live. We're cutting. Don't blame me, blame Tech. Okay, because the only way to stop this is to go live every day. So we went live every day. We cut. That was our Thanksgiving day. That was our Thanksgiving week. So Thursday of Thanksgiving, we're out there and we're cutting dudes. Like we're chopping dudes and you're playing, because that's the only way you can play that. You know what I'm saying? Now the rules have changed a little bit from the cutting standpoint, but you still got to be able to play blocks. You got to get off blocks. You got to understand option responsibility. So to answer your question is that particular kind of game would take like some special, like doing like some special game plan. Whereas like Louisiana, like Illinois, there's going to be carryover between that and say Louisiana Monroe or between them and South Florida. I
Sure.
mean, there's going to be carryover. So the biggest thing I see is you put your system in, and you got your system, okay, and then you might have, say, I don't know, you might go from having a week to prepare for the opener to add a couple days. You know what I'm saying? No more than a couple days, because you don't want guys to get bored with the game plan, but also you want to prepare for the season and not necessarily just the one game. So you may go a week with maybe couple extra practices focused on them, and that'll be it. So we'll install our system because, and offenses change. Like, for example, 12 personnel, how are you going to play 12? Are you going to play it out of nickel? Are you going to play it out of base? Are you going to mix and match, play nickel and base? So I think that you got to be able to have an answer for how you're going to play 12. Well, what if they go to 13? So how are you going to play 13 personnel with only one wide out in the game? So we'll put that package in. Now, we may only run that 15 times all year, but we have that package available. And so I think you put those packages in so that way you're ready for it as the season goes, and and kind of go from there. So that'll be how we'll approach training camp, and kind of go from there.
No, I like it. I like that. It's good info, man. That's good. That's good. Well, man, listen, have a great week, and congrats on getting through the scrimmage, and we're excited. Man. Like I said, we've created a lot of UAB football fans here in the area, so it's good.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. You guys have a great week. Talk to you later.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
Man.
There you go.
Later.
Great stuff. There you go. God Grantham joins us. How cool is that? That's good stuff. I love that stuff, man. I think that's so cool. That's so cool. And I think, he's done it at the highest level successfully, National Football League. So those guys have to look at him like, okay, he's been there. He knows what it takes. And you have to remind guys, hey, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. So the Navy thing, I guess go back to Bud hated Georgia Tech week because of that. With Paul Johnson. Not that Tech couldn't stop it, but you don't have time to stop it. You won't have time to, because it's such a departure from what you're doing most other days. And that point Todd made is so well taken. Illinois, Big Ten, lots of highly paid players, but when you're playing Louisiana Monroe, you're playing South Florida, you're basically playing Illinois in terms of what they run, their stuff. It's why I equate it to when basketball coaches have to deal with teams who run the Princeton offense. It's always a difficult thing because a lot of teams don't run that anymore. And it's something you don't see often. So you have to adjust your practices. You have to adjust how you distribute those responsibilities defensively. Just another layer of insight that's really, really cool to get from Todd. But I had the time mixed. I keep forgetting they're an hour. We're an hour ahead. So 8:30 our time is 7:30 their time. So their meeting is coming up. But just a reminder how nothing is ever completed when you're getting your football team ready coming out of the spring. And I think that's the biggest thing that we've taken out of this whole thing is that it never ends. The work never ends. And that's the important part of it. What's up, Robbie? Robbie hits me up on the professional or text line. What's one of the most underrated things in sports? One of the most underrated things in sports? I'll tell you what the most underrated thing in sports. Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs won 3 Super Bowls That's weird. I just came up on Twitter too, and I reposted it. So it's interesting that you said that. Did you see my tweet? Or my post on X now? I think what Joe Gibbs did can go down as one of the top 3 or 4 accomplishments in football coaching history, that he won, not just that he won 3 Super Bowls. He won 3 Super Bowls with 3 completely different quarterbacks. And that, to me, doesn't get the attention that it should get. Does not. Glad to hear it. Steve from the Montgomery Chamber said the golf tournament went great. Had a hole-in-one winner. That's great. Congratulations, Steve, and everybody at the Montgomery County Board. That's great. Good stuff. Good stuff, man. Proud to be part of the Montgomery County Chamber. I got to get more involved. Got to get more peeps to know what we're doing here, too. Business owners in the area and so forth. Let us help you as you help us here on BDST. But yeah, to me, that what Coach Gibbs accomplished is, think about it today. Bill Belichick hasn't won crap without Tom Brady. Would Andy Reid have any of those Super Bowls without Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City? Just be honest about it. Bill Walsh, what if there were a different guy not named Joe Montana? Chuck Noll, what if Terry Bradshaw had gone down and couldn't have played in any of the postseasons? What if they were going with Terry Gilliam or any of those backups? Cliff Stout. Would the Steelers have been able to pull off? The Steelers were a dominant team, obviously, the Steel Curtain, but they didn't win those Super Bowls by much. And Bradshaw usually made a play or two. They were in a battle in the Vikings in the first one in the rain on that cloudy day. Wasn't that like a 16-7 game or something? First Cowboys game was 21-17, the Bicentennial Super Bowl. Right? Second Cowboys game, 35-31. If Jackie Smith doesn't drop the ball in the end zone, he's got to be the sickest man in America. Vern Lundquist on the call, by the way, the former Cowboys voice. I mean, come on. Quarterback makes a difference. Well, for Joe Gibbs, he won it with 3 different ones. And he didn't win it with Hall of Famers. I think that's incredible. So you asked me the question. I've gone long on this question, but it doesn't get nearly enough play. It does with football people. They understand. But it doesn't get nearly enough discussion amongst the greatest accomplishments in the NFL and in sports. That's my take. Oh, and the other Super Bowl was the Rams Super Bowl. The Steelers were heavy favorites. Vince Ferragamo was the quarterback of the Rams. He was driving them late to upset the Steelers, the mighty Steelers. He had Billy Waddy, if I'm not mistaken, was the receiver, wide open in the flat. He would have either scored or set up a 1st and goal. Then they could have controlled the clock. Instead, he threw it right in the hands of Jack Lambert. Game over. But Bradshaw had a cannon for an arm. But the Steelers were never dominant in any of those Super Bowls. They were fortunate in a couple of them. Well, Joe Gibbs beat the crap out of everybody in the Super Bowl, right? Dolphins game was close. until Riggins run, so I'll give him that one. They destroyed my beloved Broncos in the strike year. The Dolphins' year was a strike year. And then they just unmercifully beat up on the Bills. That was the Mark Rippon Super Bowl. So, yeah, good stuff, though. I mean, I'm not saying it's the most impressive thing, but it's one that's very underrated. I think in terms of being an NFL head coach, it's the most impressive thing. Lombardi had Bart Starr. I mean, you go through the great coaches. Don Shula had Bob Greasy. Tom Landry had Roger Staubach. Joe Gibbs had Joe Theismann. Doug Williams. Jay Schrader, by the way, was also a quarterback in that game. And Mark Rippon. And won 3. I'm not taking anything away from any of the coaches, obviously. They're legends. But they did have their franchise quarterback. Joe Gibbs never did for very long. So, good stuff today. Thanks for all the professional door text line's been popping. Again, thanks everybody who sent me stuff over the weekend during the spring game, since I could not watch. Very good stuff. So I appreciate that. But yeah. Anyway, your thoughts here. TP, I didn't ask Todd. I'll ask him next time. I'm going to ask him about it. TP says you don't have to tell me your Gibbs was a genius. Yeah, it was. Been a successful NASCAR owner. That was his other passion. Got out when he did. Wanted to get out. Strong man of faith. And he adjusted to every quarterback that he had. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Is there any coach today that could do that? Think of the coaches today that are lauded as being. Answer the question yourself. The answer is no. We fall over ourselves with finding the franchise quarterback. Got to have the franchise quarterback. And then there's Joe Gibbs winning 3. So I'm just saying. Tomorrow on the program, what is it? Tuesday edition. So we'll have Marvel be on with us. See Carolina's spring game, how that turned out. Brian Siegel, now he was over there set up with the Boundary Corner people, so we'll find out how their podcast went and then what he thought of the spring game experience. And we'll get the direct report from Mike Burnham tomorrow, too. So a lot of good stuff coming directly out of the spring game. And then there won't be much tech stuff to talk about. I guess it'll be Mike's last appearance for a while tomorrow until we get revved up for the fall. That's usually the way it works in the past that he's been with us on the show. So bundle up today. I know that sunshine. I'm looking at it right now thinking, you're not fooling me anymore. We got bright sunshine outside here, the Family Fencing Studios, and it's 41 degrees in Reiner. We got a freeze warning tonight. Cover up your stuff. Temperatures are supposed to be under freezing through the night. I'm just looking that up for you. So cover up your stuff. Whatever you've planted. I know people get excited. I understand. I thought it was over too. It's my fault. I won't say it anymore. Matter of fact, I'm going to have I'm going to go with the opposite jinx here. We're never getting rid of cold weather this spring. It's going to stay cold all the time. No more saying that warm weather's here for good. It's my fault. I blame myself. So sorry. Yes, we're going to have massive snowstorms. Stephen. Anything to counteract the terribleness that has been winter not going away. We don't need temperatures in the 40s on April 20th. And it was cold yesterday, baseball. I'll tell you that. The wind was whipping, man. We had 40-mile-per-hour gusts. Those guys, both teams did a great job out in the outfield trying to track down those weird flying baseballs, man. There were some trajectory changes, and guys were – it was cold. It was cold yesterday. But I had I was smart. I grabbed my space heater and I put it up because the press box has no heat, even though I made plenty of people aware of the fact they didn't have heat before baseball season started. They still didn't fix it. All season, they didn't fix it again. So I had my space heater up. It was cranking out pretty good yesterday. It felt good. Felt real good. But everybody enjoy the rest of your Monday. Please subscribe, like, share the channel. And we'll have another great show tomorrow. But thanks to everybody who contributed. Thanks to Coach Elmo. Thanks to Todd. Good stuff all the way around. Stay warm. Telling you, bundle up. We'll see you tomorrow. It will be the Tuesday edition of the program. Take